Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Ms. Arrington, thank you for your answers to Mr. Luttrell. As I was listening to him, this is something that we've got to get solved. It's sort of amazing to me that we've had a Department of Veterans Affairs for a few years now, right? That should be really the role of the VA, is to seamlessly take care of these folks. So thank you for your work on that. I appreciate that. It's very important.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Maddie, what steps is DoD taking to ensure that AI ML systems can operate at the speed of mission, particularly in contested or denied environments where latency and decision advantage are pretty critical?
Representative, thanks for that great question. So I think, again, I don't want to reiterate too much about the approach that I mentioned with our guide efforts on the experimentation, but you make an interesting nuance to it with regard to the operational environment and the impact of degraded or denied communications. So when you think about artificial intelligence, a lot of folks tend to seem to want to, I'll say, split that perspective. And there's an AI that we do in the cloud, and then there's a autonomy piece that we do at the edge. And I think what we've learned over the last several years, actually since about 2012, since we had such an advancement in the technology with GPUs, et cetera, that allowed us to do the high performance computing at the edge, we now see this as a kind of a spectrum of not so much of here's all the things that the operator does in the rear versus here's what's happening out at the front, but really how do you enable the warfighter I'll say at AI at echelon. And because we know of the environment, we expect those types of environments to be impacting on our communications and connectivity. You have to be able to work across the spectrum of autonomy and have our systems that are able to enable the warfighters in such a way that when they are degraded or not able to necessarily communicate, they can have mission success. And so I think that that's an area where we've seen success, whether it's air or ground or sea types of capabilities that have autonomy varying from teleop up to, I'll say, semi-autonomous or almost near full autonomy in terms of their maneuver as well as their mission platforms and so on. So I think that's a great area that we're going to continue to make great progress on. But again, it all ties back to enabling the warfighter because it's the commanders that have the authorities to employ these systems in an appropriate manner.
And of course, with the sophistication of advanced persistent threats and their ability to evade detection through metadata, how is DoD leveraging AI and ML to process and analyze full packet data at machine speed in cyber operations, particularly to enable those real-time threat detection and responses in sort of contested environments?
Again, thank you for the question. I would love to give you a dissertation, if you will, on AI and cyber, but I know my teammate is working this stuff every day, and if you'd allow me, I'd ask her to kind of give you some updates on exactly where we are and what we're doing with that.
Great.
Thank you, Congressman. So as we're moving in the zero trust framework, right, that is the entirety. It's a culture. So we are using AI and machine learning in the zero trust environment. We go with the aspect that the adversary is already in the network. That's what zero trust does. So we are continuously red teaming our environments, making sure that, any kind of obfuscation that we see or abnormality we're dealing with in real time. We are not putting it into, the years ago we'd write a poem and we'd get to it. It's being done in a continuous monitoring capability in zero trust. That's why we're so forcing it. When we find and red team our platforms, our weapon systems, the red team events have to be remediated and addressed within a certain time frame, which is not long at all. And we're getting down on it. But if we didn't have AI and machine learning, that would be something that would be rudimentary. We are moving at the speed of relevance to make sure that we're doing everything we can to ensure lethality and readiness. That's why zero trust is the priority of the department, to make sure that we're getting down on this.
Great. Well, I had one more question, but I'm out of time. I was going to ask about sort of the intersection between Spectrum Authority and Golden Dome, but if you want to give your thoughts in a couple of seconds, that would be great.
Right now, my office holds the authority of, ensuring Spectrum for the Department of Defense, what we're using it for. It is paramount to Golden Dome. And between R&E, research and engineering, my office, CDAO, and across the DARPA, we are working to make best use of the spectrum that we have to ensure that we can provide Americans true security with Golden Dome. That is our number one priority, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Arrington, I did want to kind of follow up on the spectrum question. You talked about the importance of that to Golden Dome.
Yes, sir.
And I know that Golden Dome is very important to this president.
Yes.
Has the administration relayed the importance of spectrum to the Congress of the United States? Because as we're talking about reconciliation, that's certainly been a consideration that we're considering up here. And I think for one of the top priorities of this administration, it's very important that that be at the highest levels, be relayed to members of Congress, how important that spectrum authority is to Golden Dome.
Absolutely. I think when the president made the statement, we will have Golden Dome, that was a clear and concise message. I can tell you that my boss, the SecDef, and the deputy have definitely made that a priority. But spectrum is something I would look at as the critical resource. It's like beachfront property. There's no more of it. It's laws of physics. We do need to look at ways to share it in a sensible, realistic manner going down the, as we look forward into the future. Because what we have today, in 10 years, what will 6G look like? That is, 7G, is it 8G? And as we're moving in AI. So we're really looking to our study on DSS, dynamic spectrum sharing, but the president has made it crystal clear that we are to protect the nation first. That is his priority. That has been his priority since day one, from securing the border to, Golden Dome. The president's desire is to secure the nation, and understanding that the first three of the megahertz of spectrum are critical to national security, not just for ourselves, but our allied partners. I don't think that message has ever been any clearer. And Golden Dome is an exciting approach. I look, I've been to Israel several times, and I look at how effective Iron Dome is. And this goes along with my thought and belief that we must do more in the non-kinetic sense with the spectrum, right? To have AI and sensing to not have a kinetic event happen. And that's what Golden Dome really is about, is sensing when there is a kinetic activity, that we can send a kinetic response to save lives. And the president, the secretary, and the deputy have made that abundantly clear to myself, my office, and everybody in the department.
Yeah, we still, and I'm a big supporter and will be a big proponent of Golden Dome here. We still have some colleagues on even our full Armed Services Committee who are not fans and who do not believe that it will work, but that's them. I'll let them speak for themselves. But to the point of the do you know that the legislative liaison office of the White House is actually talking about this spectrum issue with regard to reconciliation? We've got some folks in the Senate that want to use spectrum sell-off in the reconciliation process.
There have been areas of spectrum. I believe that we came to an agreement of about 425 megahertz with the FCC, and some areas that we could, CRBS, which is a certain band that we have a few systems in, that we can move out of to make capital markets more accessible to that. But the lower three is not in that mix. Yeah. That is definitely above that. There are FCC bands. There's, higher bands that go through other agencies, Transportation, Department of Transportation. And that's another area we need to be considerate of. I mean, Secretary Duffy is dealing with a great deal with the federal, transportation, with air and traffic. Those bands are what they're using. So we have figured out there's about 425 megahertz that solidly we can unencumber and let to be sold, but not the lower three.
Yeah. And that's great if we have a compromise that will work and still allow us to do it. But just do me a favor, go back and double check with the Office of Legislative Liaison and make sure that they're delivering that message to Capitol Hill.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.